Mark. This is Mia and Silvio and Epcot.
Epcot? Like the center?
My parents were Disney freaks.
Mia, girl. Mr. Man here is giving Mayor of Whoville vibes.
We open the wine now.
Hello, lovers. Welcome back to And Just Like That, The Writer's Room, the official companion podcast of And Just Like That from Max. I'm Michael Patrick King, writer, director, and executive producer of And Just Like That. And today I'm here with executive producer and writer Elisa Zuritsky.
Hi.
Hi, Elisa. Executive producer and writer Susan Fales-Hill.
Hello.
Co-executive producer and writer Samantha Irby.
Hi.
And writers and executive story editors Lucas Froehlich.
Hi there.
And Rachel Palmer.
Hey.
Okay, it's time for us to get into the finale of Season 3. This episode, Party of One, was written by me, Michael Patrick King, and Susan Fales-Hill. I also directed the episode. Now, please, if you haven't seen the episode, do stop listening to this podcast because we really worked hard on giving you a nice finish and we don't want you to hear about it this way. Go watch the episode and then please come back and talk to us. Okay, this entire season of Season 3 was driving to this one thought at the end of this finale episode, which is Carrie with no man. Carrie on her own. And I still remember the day when we were discussing it that Susan said the last sentence, the last voiceover out of her mouth came this sentence. She was not alone, but she was on her own. And that sent chills at that moment to me because I thought that really defines what we were trying to say in such a beautiful way, Susan. It just came out of you.
It's something a therapist once said to me. And it's very true. I'm so interesting. I didn't know I was in therapy. You're saying it didn't work. It's, I think, an empowering statement for women because one of the things I hear from a lot of fans of the show who are, let us say, of my vintage, I'm in my 60s, is that many of them are not going to have mates going forward. And they're all right with that. And so to say that it is not tragic for a woman to end up on her own, which implies a choice, which implies power, which implies a joy in having this space to have your own thoughts and be your own.
Did you guys feel that when she said it? Because when I was like, oh, crystallized, done. That's the end.
I remember it felt like a period, punctuation mark to a woman's life.
Yeah, and to the end of Carrie's novel.
Journey this season.
I think that in my mind, one of the things that I also am addressing in this moment is something that happened in the finale of Sex and the City, which has always been sort of a little bit on the periphery of my consciousness about we should probably correct that if we ever have a choice, which is Carrie's big voiceover at the end of Sex and the City is the most significant relationship that you will ever have is the one that you have with yourself. And if someone else comes along and loves the you love, well, that's just fabulous. But the flaw in that is that she's saying that while Big is calling her on the phone. So she's saying the most significant relationship of all is the one you have with yourself with an insurance policy in her hand. So I think this whole season, to me, was the proof of the thesis that the most significant relationship you can have is the one you have with yourself that Carrie put out there. But now, after this incredible season of Men and Amaze and Where Are You and Who Are You has wound up here. And it starts in a very curious way in a very modern, futuristic Asian restaurant where the first line out of her mouth is just one. And the woman takes her into this restaurant. Now, I went to a restaurant like this. Unbeknownst, Craig and I went to this restaurant. We thought, well, this will be cool.
Was this in L.A.?
It was in L.A. This will be cool. We walked in and we found ourselves in the future. We were uncomfortable. There were robots going around that were sort of the busboy robots. They handed us apps. They gave us no instructions. And I thought, this is so surreal. And I'm having a conversation with somebody how surreal it is. To be there alone is funny. Then we found out they also have restaurants in New York.
And it's another one of those moments in which you took a vignette from real life and said, this has to be in the show. And it became the perfect way to introduce or continue this theme of she's by herself.
Yeah.
And how does society treat that?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we immediately put her out of her element. So when I went to the restaurant, I was with a couple, so I never got to meet Tommy Tomato. But what I discovered is if you were a single woman and you go to this restaurant and dine alone, they give you Tommy Tomato to sit across from. The hostess says, so now you don't have to eat alone.
But only women,
Only
not
women.
men.
There's no
Okay.
Sally Squash.
Okay.
It's only Tommy Tomato.
So what if you're queer?
You still get Tommy. Tommy is gender non-specific except for his name.
It's a great opening to the show too, because she starts out excited to try this place by herself, and it's that kind of journey of being by yourself. Where you're like, oh, this is fun, and then all of a sudden the insecurity and the kind of what is going on out of itness when you're by yourself sweeps in, and it's a great place to start the show because later on,
Right.
when we end with that conversation with Charlotte, there's this whole journey, but it's a good starting beat for that. Which
It's also so infantilizing. Like sitting across from a big stuffed animal is kind of like, I don't know, what's something I would assume that they would do for a young woman of don't worry, here, you can sit with this. It's literally a toy for her to play with because she's by herself.
Right. It'd be so much worse to be
how would it,
sitting
Lisa?
alone than to be sitting across from a doll. The implication.
I know, the doll makes you look like a freak a little bit.
It's such a crazy mirror, like a
little bit.
funhouse mirror that society is, this restaurant has decided.
Well, it's actually interesting. I'm sorry to say that it's not just this restaurant. It's still society has decided.
Yeah.
Well, how often do you hear it was so sad she was sitting there having dinner by herself,
Yeah.
as opposed to assuming somebody might have chosen to?
Remember in the Sex and the City way back?
Yes.
Carrie, at the very end of an episode, Carrie went to a restaurant by herself.
Yes. It
and-
was, they shoot single people.
And they had,
Yeah.
she just sat there with a glass of red wine.
Yeah.
And here she is now with an iPad and odd menu that she doesn't even understand. And what's also interesting is she doesn't get any answers to her questions. She's on her own. She doesn't see it as a motto. She just sees it as a predicament.
The kind of predicament that her editor basically outlined
Yeah.
when she handed in the book.
Well,
That
also,
this
don't
is
forget,
sad.
she's coming off the last episode where she kind of retreated and started to write an epilogue that is about waiting for a man to come from England back. I mean, she really got
She
spooked.
second-guessed
She
it.
got
Yeah.
spooked by going to her old apartment and seeing Lisette and being, oh, this is the reality. I am alone. And the publisher doesn't want the character to end that way, and I
Right.
don't.
All of these people echoed for her the notion of Charlotte was horrified by the notion of her being alone. Lisette said, aren't you scared to be alone in that house?
Right,
And
right.
when she arrives at her doorstep, she actually is scared for the first time. So
Yeah. The interesting thing about going from this alone thing into the next image, which is a woman talking about bridal couture, LTW and Marion are in the editing room again, and LTW is looking at footage of a woman talking about fashion.
Anne Lowe, human footnote here. Anne Lowe, who was the first African-American designer to have her own label and her own salon. So,
And
who
who
designed-
designed the wedding dress for Jackie Kennedy for her first marriage.
But the idea being that weddings are celebrated everywhere. It's in history, and it's an interesting tack that the woman that is in LTW's movie is talking about this. But what we learn is that the woman is a bridal baller, and she said, you must come to my bridal fashion show for this interview. She wouldn't sign the release without it.
Yeah.
And then they get a text from Higher Ground, which is the Obama's production company, from their connection there, and LTW discovers
That Michelle Obama will not be in the documentary.
they've decided she's too famous.
She's too famous. However,
She's too
she's
known.
going to narrate, which is a huge moment of excitement.
if she likes it.
Yes.
But the
Right.
funny thing that's great about this to me is that LTW says to Marion, this is what I've been telling everybody since
Right.
May, which is
Right.
the very first episode of this season.
Exactly.
She's like, this, she's too famous for this, and it gets
Exactly.
recognized.
Exactly. She's not sitting around waiting for me, unknown documentarian, to call and say, would you please be in my documentary?
And the next moment is the moment that Samantha's been hoping for, an actual physical connection between LTW and Marion. Right, Sam? They actually
I
connect.
loved it so much. I mean, I feel like I'm afraid that when people listen to all these together, they're going to think that I'm a lecherous old woman, but he truly, any contact with Marion is good contact.
Well, I don't think you're alone, Sam.
But it comes out of this
very
moment of
pleased.
enthusiasm and spontaneous joy, and they've won something together that they both cared about, but it's a little too close for comfort.
And she finally draws the line. She's been flirting openly, subversively,
fantasizing,
and she finally says, enough.
I'm married, you're married. And then there's that great line that you came up with, I'm a good editor. I know not to put whatever this next scene is in the movie.
Right.
And then, Samantha, you and I then cry because we wanted to see that next scene.
I submitted a rewrite where they said, let's celebrate with sex.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
in the writing room, we talked a lot about what are the ways to get her out of this. And, you know, there are other ways. He could say, you know, in the comedy way, I'm gay.
We were going to do that. We were going to have him go too far and try to ask her, because she was going to be going down to Washington, D.C. to do this interview, and he was going to ask her to stay somewhat suggestively. And we decided
Oh my God.
that was a panty line too far.
We were always moving. Yeah, it was to cross the panty line there. But the idea being that we wanted it to be a real thing. And we had talked about the idea that men and women should be able to work together, even if they're attracted to each other, if they have a strong boundary. That's what we talked about.
And it underscores one of the themes in this particular episode about how marriage is about choosing your person again and again and again, in spite of everything, all the trials, all the tribulations, all the temptations right in the office.
Right.
And Rachel, I remember in the writing room, you were saying that you thought it was interesting that the conversation could also be like, I shouldn't have to have this conversation as a woman. You know what I mean? With a male I'm working with. Why is this a thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to, because you're kind of assuming that the other person is also into you, and that's a scary assumption to make if you're wrong.
We also explored that, by the way.
Yes.
We did kind of explore that option, which
The pie in the face.
The pie in the face version, which, you know.
Yes. But I mean, I like that. I like how it ended up with, you know, just that honest moment of like, this has to just be work. It has to just be work. And he's like, okay.
Well, it was also nice. Like it was a mature, like, two things can be true. We are attracted to each other, but we're not going to do this. And that like, it felt like a very mature way to handle some of the oddities we've all kind of shared in the room of like relationships that feel like a tidbit inappropriate, but they never go to the level of fully inappropriate. And then that's okay. That's not something that's like you have to tell your partner or anything like that. Just these shades of grayness that exist and just being a human in the world.
And I also kind of like that Herbert's not in a good place. It's not the most attractive Herbert she's ever been with, but it's still not, Marion's still not tempting enough to break her away from that.
Yeah,
in a low moment. Yeah,
and as
true.
Lucas mentioned, it's more of a grown-up relationship. And now we're going into one of our most grown-up relationships that we finally evolved into, which is Steve and Miranda. Steve and Miranda having Mexican food, talking about their dilemma with their son that they love, which is that Mia and
this baby. Oh
and the
my
baby
gosh.
that's coming. But what I love about this scene is it's in the finale, and in the finale of season 2, they had a nice scene, but it was about moving away from each other. Like, I'll go over here and you can be fine there, and I'll go over here on the boardwalk and we'll both just pass away. We'll live our lives separately and occasionally maybe come together. The crisis of having a son have a baby that is maybe wanted or not wanted has brought them truly to the best parts of themselves.
Yeah, they've been through it.
But it's also the reality of they have this beautiful son together, and now they're going to have added responsibility with a grandchild coming.
I love the romanticism of you saying they have this beautiful son together, where Steve's whole version of it is this kid fucking fucked up. He says fuck like 9 times in the episode. This fucking kid, and what happened? There's nothing romantic about this scene.
There's nothing romantic, but what is romantic is their fierce love for their child.
Yeah.
And even though he has royally effed up, they're going to be there every step of the way. And this continuation of life, I love that Miranda is so fiercely attached to. I have life coming into the world that belongs to me.
Well, but she said that to Brady, and he's not buying it. And all of a sudden, in this scene, Steve says, "There's no way, no kid of ours is going to come into the world, and we're not going to no grandkid."
There lies the romance.
That is the romance. That is the romance.
The way Miranda reacts to that compared to the script, it's like the emotion that overtakes her eyes in that scene when she's like, of course, like this kid will be in our lives. It's just like, I mean, it's in the script, but just one of those performances of those two actors where it just like really levels it up in terms of, there's just so much unsaid between the dynamic between them in this scene where, because of the show, the 25, 30 years of these characters being together, there's certain scenes that sparkle even brighter with the right pairing of actors. And I think this is one of them.
I shouldn't have blown up like that, screaming fuck and everything. I'm gonna call him, leave him a message.
Yeah? What are you gonna say?
Hey, Brady, it's Dad. I love you. I'm sorry. You fucking fucked up your fucking life.
Oh, Steve. How did we get here? I've been putting condoms in his stocking every Christmas since he was like 14.
I remember. You even put one on a banana to show him how.
What a waste of a banana. What are we gonna do?
We're gonna figure it out. There's no way our grandkid is not gonna know us. No way.
Miranda is grateful to have Steve in her life at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like the guy she was like, please don't be
has
in my life. It doesn't work. And now she has
A
someone
co-parent.
a co-parent
The
to lean
only
on.
other person who can understand how she feels is him.
And that's the other romance of this, is there's so much on the same page.
Yeah.
Right. But only because she corrected her alignment to be where she should be, which is not with him as a partner in sexuality or in day-to-day, but him as a partner emotionally and spiritually.
Yeah, he's still family, which I find it very affirming.
It is affirming that love takes different forms, and that just because a relationship ended in one form doesn't mean it's over, and that it wasn't worth it.
And then we cut from the night of a Brooklyn Mexican restaurant to the splendor of the Brooklyn Botanical Garden. Now, when Susan and I knew we were going to do this fashion show, we were like, what could it be? And then we realized it's got to be 1846. It's got to be the Gilded Age. It's got to be Carrie's book. It's got to be a manifestation of that part of New York. And production got the Botanical Garden,
Which is actually the site of a lot of high-end fashion shows now. It's a big popular spot, and we were lucky to get the beautiful clothing.
Yeah, and it's an amazing entrance into the scene because you see these four new friends that are now four old friends walking towards this fashion show in that beautiful pastoral background, like four warriors, and Carrie is like laying it out. Ladies, I had lunch with a doll because it's a shame to be a woman and alone. And they want to call Yelp, and basically Carrie says, it's not only a problem in the past, which is what her editor says, to have a woman alone in 1846 is bad, but apparently when there's robots serving you, it's a problem in the future as well. And then we go into the most credited society custom of all, get married. And we see all the flowery beginnings of a wedding. And the fashion show is amazing. Thank you, Molly and Danny, and the entire wardrobe department.
Oh my God.
It's just a waterfall of important, beautiful looks.
Yep, and the House of Amsala, which she was also an African-American designer. She sadly passed away, but the house still stands and
thrives.
And thrives.
Okay, so here we have a fashion show with four women with different points of view. And if you look at it, we have this married woman, LTW. We have a divorced and remarried woman, Charlotte. We have a married widowed woman, Carrie. And we have the woman who's never been married, Sema. And the interesting thing about the Sema never been married is right before this scene, we discover in a very sexy, then tragic morning scene that when she tells Adam that she's going to a fashion show, as he's peeing, he says that seems like a waste of time.
Bridal fashion show, right.
Yeah, and he says that's a waste of time.
Yeah, and we discover that he doesn't believe in marriage.
At all. And she walks out of there. She drops that lipstick in the sink and walks out of there like she's been shot. And as he just keeps peeing. And the first conversation in the fashion show is Carrie and Sema. And Carrie's talking about he literally pissed all over the idea of marriage.
And we had a long conversation about what where she is in marriage and like how, pardon the phrase, wedded she is to the idea of getting married in her 50s. And I think where we landed was that it's never happened to her, and it is something that she always believed was the great love is capped with a wedding.
But she's so aware of it. She says, or is it something I'm just programmed to want, which gets us right back into the society that we entered the scene with.
And that's so beautifully illustrated by a fashion show audience that is filled with mothers and daughters, grandmothers and granddaughters who are all there to buy into the fantasy. Yeah. I love the sort of Stephen Sondheim counterpoint of this scene, because as you just laid out, there are these 4 very different points of view, and then it's all illustrated and counterpointed by this ultimate fantasy representation of what a wedding is.
Yeah, it couldn't be prettier. And the other interesting thing that Seema says to Carrie, and I think it's very, very important, is you were married. Why did you do that?
Right.
And then Carrie says a very vulnerable thing. She says, because I felt like I was chosen.
Yeah.
It's one of those questions. It's like, it's a conversation between 2 friends, and yet the stakes as a viewer, like, even though I knew the script, it's like, I was like on the edge of my seat of like, how is Carrie going to answer that? It's like, it's one of those things of the show that it's an everyday conversation, and yet it feels so giant to hear that Carrie respond to that.
And Sarah Jessica says that, and it goes right to Carrie and Big for a second. You can actually feel that how much she needed that at that moment, that he said, you're the one. Right. And then that feeling is what Seema says, now I feel like I'm going to cry. I don't feel chosen. And then she says the most sophisticated thing in the scene. Carrie says, you don't feel chosen by Adam? And she says, is that even his responsibility? That's the advanced thought. That's the really forward-thinking, current Seema.
Rational, right.
Like, it's not about somebody doing something to make me feel way.
And yet, I still have this
question, not demand,
Right.
question.
Right.
And then we cut over to the currently married women, and LTW is not feeling it.
Yeah, and she's
they're
saying,
in a
should
very
we
different
warn?
place.
Because she's looking, there's that great shot of a real life grandmother and granddaughter, and the granddaughter's young and doe-eyed and looking in absolute wonder at these gowns, and she's saying, should we warn them?
It's like that's
about what
the
this
programming.
really is.
The
This
programming is happening for that little girl.
And we were also very intentional in terms of the extras. We made the conscious decision that it would be a very mixed crowd to show how universal this myth is for women.
Yeah.
Charlotte says to one dress, that's pretty. And LTW says, yeah, pretty deceiving. And that's what it is, because she's talking about a husband who's depressed, and it's all about him. And then Charlotte, she says, is it ever about us? And then Charlotte mentions marriage is about cancer and no sex and things.
Well, this to me is, again, the delight of writing this show is dealing not with how do I get to I do, but what the hell did I do? And really exploring all of
lifetime commitment.
the lifetime commitments, all of the challenges, all of the frustrations.
And in this gorgeous, gorgeous, beautiful, emotional music and romance, over-the-top romance, they're pointing out, the 2 married women, both with very real problems at this point, are pointing out that it's not all it's cracked up to be. Right. And then LTW says, would you do it again?
The pivotal question.
And Charlotte says, yes.
And that's healing for LTW.
And then she says, so would I.
Yeah.
It's like, you can say these things aloud, and you're not a bad person for like doubting your marriage and that, like, but at this, and with a friend of saying that, but at the end of the day, with the way the episode ends, it's like, it's actually a model of like, oh, we come back together stronger, when they're cleaning each other's mess up eventually. So it's like, getting to say that to a friend is not like, oh no, what have I done? It's like, it's necessary to have that time to vent. And that's what the, like, kind of a profound friendship can do, is like, you allow for yourself to share these kind of feelings.
Right. And after they say they would do it again, here comes the finale, which is not only all the brides, but 2 little girls programmed at the age of 10 and 11 to also be brides. The programming continues and everybody's applauding and it's gorgeous, but the programming continues and that music rings out over Carrie and Charlotte walking down the street which is the most emotional scene for me in a long time.
Seriously, though. Who will I be alone? Yes, I know I've lived alone a lot, but I've never lived alone without the thought that I wouldn't be alone for long. I mean, even when Big died after the shock and the total devastation, in the back of my mind, I thought, maybe Aiden. And recently, though Duncan, clearly told me I'm not coming back, I thought maybe. But I have to quit thinking maybe a man and start accepting maybe just me.
It's interesting. She's deprogramming herself right now.
And Charlotte wants to reprogram her. It's a terrifying thought to her.
Right.
She immediately rushes in.
I mean, it is powerful. That
Emergency. There are men.
Right.
You're
Don't do us.
I remember very clearly, Michael, we all go off, like we have our meetings for hours and hours every day, and then we go back to our lives, we sleep, we live, we come, and then we come back together. And I remember you coming back and having this very clear thought that you wanted Carrie to acknowledge that she never really, even back in Sex and the City, like that she does have this sort of pathological need to slot someone in, to find someone, to slot someone in, that deep down, all the talk about your relationship with yourself is what she's trying to do, but she's actually not ever been at peace with that idea.
She says, I know I've been alone before, but never with the idea that nobody would come. That's the difference. In your certain areas, you think, well, no, somebody will come tomorrow. And you age 20, 30, 40, now 50. And she's finally saying, maybe not, maybe just me. And she says, and that's not a tragedy, which is what Amanda, her publisher, said. It would be a romantic tragedy if she wound alone. She said, it's not a tragedy. It's just a fact. Full stop.
Yeah, it's like no longer a fear. It was kind of always a fear that she would end up alone. And now it's kind of more like, oh, that might happen. And that's not
But at the same point
I can
now,
handle it.
she's still a little teary.
Yes.
And that's what's very important.
Yes.
She's still a little, just a tiny bit.
There's a sadness.
Wistful.
A little
There's
bit of a
sadness.
martyr,
Yeah.
a little bit of a poor me, I'll get through this. I accept this less than ideal
Fate.
fate.
Yep.
It's almost like Buddhist or something like that, where it's like, there is no like grand success movie ending to life. It's like life is this, you go on this journey and you are by yourself. There is a struggle, but you like make do in such a way. And I think it's just like a higher level plane for her. It feels specifically from like the like single girl archetype of, generations, honestly, to say that and to get to that, I think is like a very cathartic and necessary thing for anybody to hear, because it's like, we talked about this a lot in the room. It's like at some point you will be alone in some way.
It's also really important to me that there's always been a single character, always. There's always been a single character, somebody not married. Let's just say somebody not married, someone not being in society's rules. And, they used to say Carrie was the eternal single girl. And now she is really looking at the eternal single woman. And it's a big chess move and a reprogramming for her. And then if Charlotte, of course, as Susan said, no, there's men out there.
Right.
Fill
in the gap.
And the last 2 lines, Charlotte listens to her and says, you are just so fabulous. And Carrie says, well, that was never in question. It's Carrie looking really, really at herself in a very naked and vulnerable way, which gets us into LTW coming home, Herbert is on the bed. He's looking at his iPad, which is what she said, get back to work, is what she complained to Charlotte. He's just moping around. And she walks in, and this was so important to Susan. How many conversations did we have about the vows?
Yes, we wanted them to basically renew their vows, that she's inspired by this fashion show and by her conversation with Charlotte to go back and basically say to him, I choose you again.
In sickness
Even
and in health.
sickness and in
Yeah.
sweats.
Worst nightmare.
Susan, was that in your real vows? In sickness and in sweat?
Sweats were not mentioned.
Susan would not.
Bridge too far.
This is LTW.
It's oddly...
Theoretical sweats. Emotional sweats, never real sweats.
This is one of those writing haiku scenes where it's just the poetic few lines, and then the actors go boom. I mean, Chris Jackson says, oh yeah, how? When she says it was illuminating. But everything he's playing on his face is so deep. And just the giant Shakespearean effort of her saying, give me your hand. And she says it without being maudlin. She says basically,
And Tom Ford suits or sweatsuits.
and then he says, I'll get over this mess. He acknowledges that he's a mess. And
because he lost the
loss
election
for the
We
first-
for the
and
first
he-
time in his life,
yeah.
he's failed it.
Which is also kind of a chosen thing. It's like a chosen, he didn't get chosen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's hurting him.
Right.
And
Exactly.
she's saying,
Yeah.
I still choose you.
and that is
that's more
that
important.
beautiful Chris Jackson sort of quiet, strong thing that he plays as Herbert. And then she says, we'll get over it.
Yes.
And then you're reminded again that even individuals in a couple are a we.
Exactly.
You know-
And chocolate croissant back at the editing bay notwithstanding.
Well, I think that's what's
they
interesting.
have made it through.
Yeah, I think that's what's interesting, that in
Yum,
the same
yum.
episode,
Back to that.
in the same episode, she has the temptation, and then now she has the revow.
The last temptation of
Resurrection.
LTW.
Yeah, I was going to say, there is a certain biblical journey there.
The scene in the garden that follows, that quiet Thanksgiving morning scene, we've already learned that Adam doesn't believe in traditions like Thanksgiving and now marriage. And he's there planting in the garden, getting it ready for spring. And Carrie comes down as the good friend that she is with a coffee, drive-by excuse to talk.
Second coffee of the season she's delivered to someone.
She is
And
changed.
counting.
And she basically says, thanks for being here on Thanksgiving and doing this. It starts with her saying, what bulbs are you planting? And here's a little wink to us, not telling you you'll be surprised what comes in spring, because you never know what's going to come. But that's him saying you'll be surprised what blooms. But that's all. If you needed audience, there's your way out. You'll be surprised what comes next in spring. But the reality is Carrie calls him out on how do you feel about Sema? Is she just an ordinary day? And he says, no, she's a lifetime, which is his way of saying, I'm here.
I'm choosing her.
I love her.
I'm choosing her.
And
yeah.
then
exactly.
something very important happens. Carrie, who started the relationship with the garden, saying, I don't know what I want. Everything's changed. That's what her first interaction with Adam was. He says, what do you want? And she says, I don't know. Now she says, this is really good, very controlled garden, but I'd like to go back to something wild, more me, which makes me feel, as a writer, I connect a little bit to her at the end of the Plaza episode where she connects herself to the wild horse after Big says, and I thought, wow, she really is going back to herself, her true essence without anyone approving of it. She wants a wild garden. And then the ultimate Zen master says, let's do you. And I felt like that's what he was doing in the first time they met.
Yeah.
Just like, you'll be surprised what comes in when you're...
And in that episode, the earlier one, it was the uncertainty and the unknown that was terrifying. What is underneath this mess?
Right.
And now she's ready for the unknown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or getting ready for the unknown.
But also knows herself a little bit better and knows that, like, okay, this was a lovely, manicured garden you made for me. But now I know a little bit more because remember, she had no vision.
She has a vision for herself. She wants to be herself. And that's thrilling. And yet she's still got a little bit of I'll do it alone. It's fine. I'll just be wild by myself. Okay, so now we get into, it was very important for us if Carrie was not having the Thanksgiving, that she be the best friend in the entire world. And what's better than being the one who drives around town delivering pies? Like, that's her largesse. You know, a lot of people, oh, they have kids and they do their thing and they make Carrie's like, I'm buying.
Or they bake a ton of stuff and then they bring it. No.
No, she has crazy cool pie container carriers, which they make. We got them on Amazon. I was like, how's she going to get these pies around? We got them. And the pies are there and she's adorable and she's very Carrie. She's got a pink velvet hat on and a tulle coat.
They're like pie purses.
A coat and that pink tulle underneath and that top. And we talked forever with Molly and Danny about what's Carrie's final outfit going to be. And it wound up, we went in and out of a million things, and they wound up saying with Sarah Jessica, it's going to be tulle. And it's going to have a kind of an amazing
but less
sparkle.
of a girlish color.
But there were many conversations because she's in this outfit for 9 scenes from now on.
Right.
So it's like, what outfit is not going to be?
It's like the next level of writing.
It
writing
is.
that you do.
Well, you know,
it's really interesting.
And is that a nod to the finale? The series finale
It's
for Sex
all
and the City?
unspoken, Sarah Jessica, them. It's a vibe, you know, and they try everything. They try everything. And then you think, what's the outfit that's going to continually amuse, not be so pushy? You think, that's ridiculous. I'm tired of looking at that. And they came up with this. And as it goes on and on, it just, every time the light hits that top in every scene, I'm like, hee hee, they picked right.
Well, and the coat was really beautiful.
The coat was
it felt. I think
Yes.
it's a Vivian Westwood, and it felt very turn of the century or 19th century, which
And
is in
fall.
keeping and
Yes.
fall.
But in a new
So,
way. And then the hat is so crazy cute. And the thrill for me is it comes off in the first scene when she arrives, but you get the joy of the hat. And Carrie, here she is, the Pied Piper, literally just delivering pies. She's Puck in Midsummer Night's Dream. She's running around, knocking on doors, handing out pies. And each of the pies is specific to what she thinks that people will like. And then people are bailing. Anthony's going to stay at home and talk to Giuseppe about the fact, you know, Anthony had addressed in the other episode that he's not really into the idea of marriage. He almost just said yes because Giuseppe proposed, which is very, very real. That happens. It happened to Carrie with Aiden. So he's going to stay home. Harry wants to stay home because of
what he's been through.
And he has a vision of Thanksgiving with his family at home, and everybody's agreed to it. But she's going to make the stuffing, Charlotte, but she can't because she's now, I forgot, before Carrie shows up with the pies, I forgot the most important thing. Harry's hard.
Yay, Harry.
Harry gets
Most
hard.
important thing.
Looking at her
Or
bait.
the baster.
Yeah, it's that-
cheering at the screen.
Get Viagra. Get a baster.
She's basing a perfect turkey. It's the Norman Rockwell.
Right. Who
Hard
wouldn't?
on.
Who wouldn't?
Should be unpacked. Yeah.
Anyway, that was so important to us because we wanted to at least give them back their sex life. And Charlotte doesn't bring the stuffing that she was required because she's very busy in the bedroom. And you see Lily recognize what's going on, and she just smiles, and she's so happy when she opens the door to Carrie with the pies as she's pucking around town with the pies. And then Miranda opens the door with her phone. She's just gotten a text from Joy that Joy can't come because her dogs are, air quote, sick. And Carrie becomes the de facto host of a Thanksgiving from hell. But when she walks in and you see her and Brady, that combination, like that, like the aunt that really gets the nephew and he's really cool with her, even though he's like complaining and she's into it. And then Miranda says, I'm out of here. And then Carrie really gives Miranda some tough love, some tough girlfriend love, as she says, basically, before you air quote yourself out of this relationship with your fears that she didn't want to come, maybe you make a call and communicate and find out what's really going on. That's how she finds out the dogs are in surgery and she flees. Carrie places a cheese tray, very gorgeous cheese platter from the props department.
Always gorgeous.
Always
and edible.
Shocking.
Perfect setup for the fact that the next people that come in, one of them is lactose intolerant. Anyway, the door opens up and it's Mamma Mia and her 2 roommates, Epcot and Silvio. I mean, it's like an animated Disney film shows up suddenly. They open the door and there are these 3 characters. And Mamma Mia is kind of sweet.
Played by
She's-
Ella Stiller, by
Ella
the
Stiller.
way.
So many different levels. That could have been the most
She's
obnoxious character that
perfect
you
in
just
this
wanted to
role.
smack, and you end up actually falling in love with her.
Because when Silvio
Mhm.
says that opening slam, basically, girl, she don't seem crazy.
Mhm.
Ella, as Mia, is really embarrassed and appropriate and says, sorry, and what are you doing? I mean, you
Mhm.
see that. Look, when
She's
we
a
were,
person.
when we were
right.
bringing in Mia, we thought this is tricky because we have to bring somebody in who's a comic foil to Miranda, but also not so fucked up that the audience is depressed. But the reality is, and the interesting thing about Mia as Miranda's nemesis, Ella Stiller is Ben Stiller and Christine Taylor's daughter. And we cast her before we knew that, and she was amazing. And when she showed up, I realized Miranda's last nemesis in the series was Ann Mira, who is Ella's grandmother.
Minds have been
And
blown.
at the table, Ella said to me, I feel like my grandmother got me this part.
Oh,
God.
That's
But
so
she had that magic
sweet.
quality of comic and yet nice and sweet.
Mhm.
Like, well, she's not going to kill the baby,
Well, and-
even
and
though
not-
the
Yeah.
dog runs away. And she's
well,
like,
Right.
and it could have been a nightmare.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
the great Samantha inspiration of she was going to abort, but then she realized it was going to be a double Libra, so she had to keep it. This
Yeah.
is
Oh,
not
I know.
anybody's dream of
Unfortunately,
a
I have
daughter-in-law.
friends who are like that.
as Rachel
This
pitched,
baby's gonna
that's
be a
going to be such a fucking vibe. But the reality is, I don't even know if the baby was going to be a double Libra. But after she pitched that, I was just like, it has to be double Libra. It
Yes.
doesn't matter when the
You
birth
can't
is.
beat it.
We don't care. Astrology, who
Well,
are going to
people
call
will be
us up and
writing
say
it.
there's no way it could be a double Libra. We don't care.
Oh, the Neil deGrasse Tysons are figuring out the star charts right now.
Anyway, the point is that she opens the door and there's three characters show up, and Epcot is named after the center because her parents are Disney freaks. And it's just crazy because Mia then announces that she only eats.
Cucumbers, seaweed, and brown rice.
That's a direct Susan. The minute Susan said she knew somebody who said, I only eat cucumbers, I was like, so does Ella.
Was it Susan? Susan, that's what you eat.
It's such a.
No, I eat chocolate croissants too.
Gluten-free,
Okay.
gluten-free.
Anyway, the point is, she has an impossible diet that she didn't notice. And in the true younger version, she goes, well, that's on you. No one asked me. So Brady now has to go find this impossible stuff, leaving Carrie now totally alone in the party mode and to open the door for the unexpected Mark Kasabian, played by Victor Garber. She doesn't even know why he's there. And then he references, is Charlotte here yet? And Carrie realizes, oh, Charlotte had connected them and he invited him without telling her. And then when he finds out Charlotte's not there, he basically says, you're here. And I'm here.
Chicka bum.
And it just got more nightmarish for
And
Carrie.
just like that.
You're here and I'm here. And then Brady walks in and Carrie goes, and he's here. Like, the idea of like, we're all here. And he then leaves them to go get brown rice and seaweed. And Carrie realizes I'm stuck with Mark.
I'm now on a date.
who will be macking on me all
and she's
afternoon.
missing Tommy Tomato
And
at
then,
that point.
and then they walk in and she introduces him to the three other guests, and he says, "Girl," he's giving us Mayor of Whoville vibes, and then Victor beautifully says, "Can we open the wine now?" And then after the Mayor of Whoville vibe, we cut to the dog hospital, where we see a very empty hospital on Thanksgiving. We hear dogs in the background, but you see Joy very upset sitting on a poof waiting for the information, and Miranda goes in.
Well, and it was you, Sam, who pitched the notion of you have to sign a waiver before your dog undergoes a procedure that you accept that it could be fatal. And we went around and around on this story.
Many
because-
episodes. Where is this going to wind
Where
up?
is this going?
And just in a bigger picture, I feel like this is a great example of, we have Dolly Wells, Cynthia and Dolly, Miranda and Joy have fabulous chemistry. They banter. It's very natural for them to be in conversation with each other as characters, as people. But then as writers, we have to keep stepping back and saying, okay, this is a new relationship. We don't actually know Joy very well. Like, how do we get to know them? What happens in the beginning of a relationship where, even though it feels to us like they're off to the races, like, actually, we have to write episodes that make sense and that are resonant for people who are starting relationships.
Once again, to go back to the driving on a trip, stops along the way.
Yeah.
You have to rest stop and say, this is where they are. Here's a bump. Okay, they got over that. That makes them more
and
real.
Like find the bumps, and for us to get to know them as new, lovers.
And we always found it's an interesting color on Miranda that she's insecure.
Yeah.
And that she keeps questioning.
Right. And when she gets insecure, sometimes she thinks she knows what is going on. And so she doesn't want to ask.
I mean, the interesting thing about Miranda this season is, and we've often said a lot about the fact that we felt people would be happy because we returned Miranda to Miranda.
Mm-hmm.
She has found her footing.
Right.
But in every relationship, people get insecure as you go. And the more important it is, maybe the more shaky you get.
Mm-hmm.
And Dolly's character, Joy, played by Dolly, has been very buttoned up this whole time. And her true love is her dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's her family, as she says later. But here we see that she falls apart because we knew there was something about the dogs being fragile that would make Joy really fragile, and then Miranda could come in and be the strong one. So we just have this little scene where Miranda sort of does that thing that relationships sometimes do. When you're losing it, you go, okay, realistically, this is her Pollyanna or her realistic moment.
Yeah.
Let's just look at this. They make everybody do that.
Yeah.
But we knew that this scene needed to be in the show, and we had varying degrees of it, and this is the place where it landed. And after we find out that the dog's okay, we can return to the comedy of the dance party that's happening at Miranda's apartment while she's gone.
It's
and
a three-ring circus.
And the uncomfortableness of
the generation clash. It's like, woo.
Yeah, and Mark just drinking, and there's a knock on the door, and it's Charlotte with her stuffing, and Carrie says, I'm going to kill you, and Charlotte says, one of her rare, fuck.
Happy Thanksgiving! I brought my stuffing. Sorry I'm late. Harry got hard, so we had sex. I'm gonna kill you because we had sex. Mark Kasabian. Fuck, I forgot to just invite him. Hi!
Charlotte, you are here.
Carrie says, can I see you in the room? And as they go through the room, Charlotte, always polite, goes, hello. She doesn't even know who she's saying hello to. And they go in and she says, you invited Mark. She says, I thought you two hit it off.
At the play.
Carrie says, had a connection. Try small talk. And she says, there's other men out there.
That's her whole point.
He has a plane.
Well, first Carrie says he's been married 3 times. He says, but he has a plane. And then you cut into, I don't know, an impromptu ballroom dance scene in the living room where Carrie and Mark are drinking wine and they're watching Silvio dance all over to his own little
drummer,
handmade speaker.
Inspired by the Jellicle Ball.
Yeah, right. And he's doing full on I'm a Star, and Mia's going, yeah, girl, yeah. And Victor's just drinking Mark Kasabian's totally out of his element. The door opens and Miranda comes back and everything's fine and she apologizes. And then she says hello to Mia. And then Brady comes in and says, the turkey's raw. They took it out too soon because they're both not sure. They never heard
that looks good.
It looks good. As Mark
Brown?
says, I guess the dark chestnut umber deceived us. You know, like they didn't.
Never at a loss for words.
They never looked at the temperature meter. They don't know. So Carrie freaks out and leaves. And he says, well, if you have 3 hours. And of course, sitting in the chair watching the whole dance party is Mia. And then Epcot, played by Spike Einbinder. And Epcot gets up in the middle of the dance party and meets Miranda and says, I have to go to the bathroom.
Well, we know that Epcot has been enjoying a lot of cheese.
Yeah. Because every time we cut
time
to poor Spike, he is eating cheese.
Yes.
I just kept looking at him going, how much cheese can you eat? And he just bring it.
I must say you've done this to several characters this season. You did it to Chris Jackson.
Yes. Well, we have a
Wexley.
history with cheese on the fucking fromage. I'll just remind you on Sex and the City. Can I very quickly, Epcot, which one of you came up with Epcot as a name, and have
Michael
you
Patrick
ever
King.
stumbled upon an Epcot
Hilarious.
in the world?
No,
Okay.
I just tried to think of a method.
I'm just curious.
I literally tried to think
Not a
of
story.
an otherworldly name
Yeah, no,
that
it's-
was neither male nor female, that was planetary.
Weird enough, but
and just
yeah.
specific that,
Yeah.
and we
and
all.
the Disney people are
We all know
big.
Disney
Yes.
people, and they would name their kids
Yes,
Epcot
totally.
There's definitely one out there.
and
guys.
Space
Totally.
Mountain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Epcot's sister, Space Mountain. Anyway, but no, that was one
Yep.
of those things. I'll
Okay.
just say Epcot, and it amuses me as a writer. Then you start building on it. Epcot,
Yeah.
Epcot, and everybody says it.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And then just a shout out to Silvio's outfit. Just
Oh my God.
The denim,
Oh my
the
God,
headband,
the
yes.
pearls.
head to
yeah.
toe denim.
Yeah.
Like every inch of his skin is covered in denim except for his nipples.
Yeah.
They just
And he has
keep
a denim,
popping out.
He has a denim headband. Anyway, so the end of the scene is Epcot saying that cheese is no joke. And then you come up on the destruction of the dinner table. They ate and went, and all you see are starch, and it's hours later, and Carrie and Miranda are in that bliss, post-dinner party bliss, when everybody's gone and you're with your friend, and
I
you're
love
just
their
like,
debriefs.
oh,
yeah.
the debrief of
I
that.
love it in life. I love it on the show. There's
you know,
nothing
just
better.
like what
Yeah.
happened, and you find out that in the bathroom, the powder room right behind Miranda, Mark is in there, and Carrie's like, he's gonna want to take me home.
Well, they all ate and ran, except for Mark. What was she even thinking?
I don't know. Shirley convinced herself that I'd get on board with Mark because he has a plane. And when he comes out of that powder room, I guarantee he is going to ask if he can take me home.
In his plane?
And I will have to let him because of what you and your extended family put that man through. Oh, God, my new relationship is exhausting.
Then you cut into the bathroom, and here is the heroic Victor Garber playing a scene with an exploding toilet.
Can you please explain to the audience what the fecal matter they're looking at really is made of? Because
Susan
we
does not
talk
want that
about
as
the
side
technical
talk.
calendar.
People might want to know.
It's silicone cast. It's floating. It's not real. The plumbing is not real. None of it's real. But the point is, we have wanted for many years to
Yes.
do something about the tragedy of when you're
The
flushing a
panic.
toilet and it doesn't go down.
And you're in someone's house. I mean, I know people.
And it's not even your fault.
I know people who it's
You're just
happened on
being
dates.
I'm going to say
I mean, it
that-
is the most relatable horror story.
And
I
the
think.
birth of the idea, I have to say, was when Carrie was dating. She went to somebody's house and flushed a tampon. And it came up. It was a concept that it's the worst thing that could happen
Yeah.
because then she has to admit everything that happened.
Everything. Yeah.
But this was where it landed many, 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 many years later on the embarrassment of Mark. And it was fun because he's so buttoned up and perfect to have him literally
in
see.
the most humiliating experience.
And then the fun is Miranda goes in and says, "Oh God," behind the door.
I loved
The
it.
fun-
The entire scene. Give us an Emmy for that alone.
and special effects.
And for him, his shameful exit from the bathroom to have to tell this new, woman he's trying to woo and the hostess, like, what, that he's not responsible.
No,
that he's
and,
not
and
responsible.
it's also our way of getting Carrie out of going home with him.
Yeah.
Because he removes himself
Yeah.
from shame, and you just see Sarah Jessica, and that's Sarah Jessica smiling at the end there. That was her laughing at the idea of Victor leaving. And then that's her smile. I think
Right.
that's a...
They are very close friends
they're close
in
friends.
life.
And then you cut into the bathroom, and Miranda's cleaning up the shit. And it's emotional, figurative shit and literal shit. And she basically says, what happened? And Carrie says, shit happens. And she's talking about the fact that I may have a baby coming into my life. And Carrie says, a very important line, I think you won that battle. And she says, won the battle, lost the war, which is alluding to whatever else is coming.
Yeah.
But joy does have a problem with family, so Miranda assumes she's going to step away from all this. And she talks about who she was at the beginning of season 3. Fancy free, new job, dating, full
Moving
of love.
out,
It was
yeah.
so fun. And here it is. Family brings up a lot of shit. And Brady's mad at her, so he moved back in with Steve. So that's okay. That's the good news. And there's a knock at the door. Carrie opens it, and it's Joy. And she comes very grand gesture and says to Miranda, you spent the day with my family. I could spend it with yours.
And we know.
They're going to be okay.
They're going to be okay.
They got to the next level.
And, and also,
she gets down in the shit with
she
him.
does. And also comments that they're both having a Hallmark weepy moment. Joy goes, oh, now you were awful. We're terrible at being this emotion. And you see Carrie quietly, privately take a pie, one pie, and get her hat and coat and go out the door. And the chaos of Thanksgiving, by design of all of us, was for this next moment. The chaos of everybody else's families and everybody else's friends and everybody's disastrous life was all put in motion so that Carrie could walk in and feel the calm and the beauty
And the
of
peace.
her life. And here is this apartment that she took many, 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 many months to furnish and make her home. It's no longer empty. It's not
The
even
security's working.
It's not even the dining room table that Aiden gave her. It's a different table. It's her choice, her furniture. She's made this beautiful little environment for herself, and she looks around, and the birds are tweeting, and it's the opposite of the chaos. And it's that bliss of when you are alone and it feels good in your environment. And she sees the karaoke, which Miranda conveniently left for this moment, and goes over and picks it up and hits Soul, and Barry White comes on. And that song fills the apartment. And it's kind of an interesting song because we went through many songs, but that was the one that we all sort of felt, and Sarah Jessica felt, because it was unexpected, but also you needs to carry her around. And that was the song we picked. And it goes from there into the last montage where you see Anthony and Giuseppe, and they are sitting there and just obviously they've had the conversation about, you think I want a mommy rather than Mary? And he says, I don't know the words in English.
That was good.
So he picks
Pie in the face.
He picks up a pie and hits him in the face. Literally, how could there not be? And I think I just want to comment that every pie that was picked was for a reason. The chocolate cream pie is because it's just so funny to get hit with a chocolate cream pie. But that goes into Rock and Charlotte and their family. And there's a line in this here, they're eating a traditional pumpkin pie because they're really the most traditional of the families, even though Rock is a very untraditional character. But what Rock says in this that's so important is, I'm going to be a lot of different people in my life. And I think that's the great success of Rock.
Well, and it's so ironic. Charlotte gets a little bit of a pie in the face because she thought she was doing the emotionally and politically correct thing by erasing this picture of Rock dressed as a girl. And Rock is saying, why?
Right.
That was a part.
Yeah.
And I'm going to play a lot of parts. And Lily I have a million pictures, and the whole family is gathered around eating the pumpkin pie.
Yeah, it was very sweet.
Yeah, it is, right? I thought the family stuff with them was really great this year.
Yeah, the whole season they really gel
As a
Golden
family.
Blats. They're great.
Then you have LTW and Herbert, and they're cleaning up the mess, and they're having an apple pie. Because I really think they're as American as apple pie with a twist. It's an apple crisp. And he's eating a piece, and he says the best part is the second piece, I no longer am in the public eye.
I don't have to watch my weight. And they are American, 16, 19 people.
Right. And he is also not in sweats is important. He is not in sweats.
Yeah.
He's in a very nice tailored, probably Tom Ford suit.
And he's basically telling her, I'm back.
Yeah.
I've got this.
Yeah.
You go put your feet
I'm back
up.
to health.
Yeah.
He says, I've got this mess. And she looks at him and says, you've got this mess. And then we come back into Miranda and Joy eating the lemon pie, which is very tart and sweet. That's who I think they are. And they're having a good time just having dessert by themselves, talking about how much they like or don't like the pie. And then we have Carrie in the kitchen alone, the kitchen, my favorite set. And she has a traditional pie, but she's eating it with a spoon without putting it on a plate. And that was Sarah Jessica. I was like, you can get a plate from there. And she goes, why would I get a plate?
Right.
I have the joy of living alone.
My pie.
I
Yeah,
can
have
eat it
my
right
out of the box.
Yes.
I don't have,
Yes.
I'll just get a spoon and eat it myself. And you see, that's the joy
Yeah.
of.
No one's looking
And that's her thinking, I'm Carrie. I can just do what I
She's
want.
free.
I can eat it my way. No one's here to see me. I don't have to cut it and put it on a plate and make a mess. I can just eat it this way. And the way she eats that pie and spins around, which gets us to Seema. And she's having a gluten-free pie, which she resented at first. She was like, this pie is why?
It's gluten-free and vegan, right?
Yeah, it's gluten and vegan. The whole meal was gluten-free and vegan. And then she says, I don't miss the gluten. In the middle of Adam's extended family, you have this woman who started out saying, I need everything to be a certain way. She says, I don't miss the gluten, which is just saying.
Almost saying, I don't miss marriage. I don't miss anything.
Right.
Can we talk for 1 second while we're on Seema about her jeans?
Yeah.
Yes, because that was a wardrobe conversation that we as writers felt very strongly about.
Yeah, we often have like big screaming, yelling fights, and it feels really good and it's cathartic, and we know we all love each other, so it's fine. But one of the biggest was about Seema wearing jeans and seeing her, because I don't go to set, I'm not there for most of production. Seeing her on the screen in jeans really made my life complete. I was like, she has jeans. Sure, they're probably $900 fancy jeans, but look at Seema wearing
Still
her
denim.
jeans.
Well,
So
the idea from the original thrust you had, I remember, Samantha, was you wanted to see her in an earthier world because she's with Adam.
Yeah.
You wanted to see a little bit of imprinting.
Change,
and then we wanted to underline it by saying, when in Rome, you know what I mean? She's like, she knows what she's wearing, but
and
it is she.
You fought it initially. You pushed back.
No, originally she was supposed to be digging in his farm in New Jersey in jeans, and I was like, that's too far.
Right.
That whole story.
Literally,
he had a greenhouse in New Jersey, and she was digging. I was like, that's too far. So then we come out of the I don't miss the gluten, and we come back to Carrie at home in her office, and the camera comes down, and I knew it was the last shot in the episode, and I was like, oh, put the cat in, because the cat sort of has its own mind, and it doesn't do what it necessarily is going to be told to do. You have to do what the cat is going to do. But I said to them as the camera was coming down the hall, because I directed, I said, just put the cat on the table, and maybe it'll still be there. And as the camera came around that corner, the cat just looked at the camera and sat down on the table, and its tail flopped over as Carrie was writing. And we see Carrie delete her old excuse of an epilogue where the woman character is waiting for maybe a man, and she just types the sentence that became the entire reason we were doing this episode was
The woman realized she was not alone. She was on her own.
And then the look on Sarah Jessica's face when you see that very familiar window shot is so resonant to me. And then when she walks down the hall, we see Carrie from behind, and then we see the last image of her in this season is her reflected in a vintage mirror, diffused, reflected, and the last thing she is singing is, there's only one like you. You're my everything. And this last moment, you see her walking to the mirror. And I think it's funny because you're seeing Carrie in a vintage setting mirror, just like we've put Carrie in a vintage novella or novel. Carrie is the woman, and they come together in that last minute, and she then just throws her hands up and disappears around the corner. I think it's a very fitting journey and a very interesting last image that it's almost not direct, but diffused.
Mm-hmm.
And she looks like she's from another time or a current moment. I don't know.
I think it's going to be very affirming for many women.
I hope so.
Well, and just like that, we reached the end of episode 12 of season 3. That's the finale. Thanks so much to Elisa, Susan, Samantha, Rachel, and Lucas for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed listening to our show and watching our show and hearing our thoughts about our show as much as we did, writing it, thinking it, and doing it. As ever, you can stream episodes of And Just Like That on Max. And Just Like That, The Writer's Room is produced by Sony Music Podcasts for Max. At Sony, Sharon Morris is the executive producer, Gianna Palmer is the lead producer, Sammy Allison is head of production. Tamika Balance-Kalasny is our production manager, and Sam Baer is our engineer. Special thanks to Becky Rowe, Allison Cohen-Sorokach, Kenya Reyes, and Aaron Kelly from the Max podcast team. Thank you for listening.